Week 10 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few quarterbacks I looked at off the wire this week. The first quarterback, J.J. McCarthy of the Minnesota Vikings. I thought J.J. McCarthy, he went out there. He took some big hits in that game, held on to the football a little too much versus the Lions. But he went out there, showed some poise in the pocket. Obviously, they won the ball game in the upset victory, 27-24. And when you got guys like Justin Jefferson, T.J. Hawkinson, it's going to make things easier as well. So, like I said, McCarthy, he was out majority of the season. We didn't see him since week 1 and week 2. And now the comeback at Detroit, he had a good ball game, 143 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception. And he had 9 rush attempts, only 12 yards, but found the end zone as well. So McCarthy, he's a quarterback that's got some mobility, obviously. We only seen 3 career starts from him in his NFL career. In week 10, Baltimore's coming in. And Baltimore definitely getting healthy on this defense over the last few weeks, but they still give up the 3rd most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. So with all these playmakers in this offense and McCarthy looking good in a tough matchup at Detroit coming off the injury, he's definitely a quarterback in deep leagues, I would add, and he's available in 71% of fantasy leagues. Next quarterback, Michael Penix Jr., the Atlanta Falcons. So Penix, he figured it out finally. Just keep targeting Drake London. London having a monster game. 3 touchdowns in that tough loss at the New England Patriots. It's had some decent ball games this season. So the last few weeks for Penix, week 6 versus the Bills, 250 pass yards, a touchdown. Week 7 in San Francisco, 241 passing, a touchdown. 6 rush yards, a fumble loss. Week 8, he missed that game. And week 9, in the return, 221 pass yards and the 3 touchdown passes to Drake London and 19 rush yards. Obviously, this offense, pretty solid offense. Bijan Robinson, one of the best backs in the league, and obviously one of the better receiving backs. Drake London, like I said, Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney. So there's good players in this offense. And Michael Penix, like I said, in week 9, he went out there, almost led the comeback victory for this Atlanta Falcon team. So with a decent matchup coming up week 10 in Indianapolis, where they give up the 14th most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. He's a quarterback to add this week, and he's out there in 81% of fantasy leagues. The next quarterback, Geno Smith of the Las Vegas Raiders. So Geno Smith, he's coming off a monster game, and it was good to get Brock Bowers back in the lineup, obviously, where he went over 120 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game. So Geno went off with a monster game, 284 passing, 4 touchdowns, an interception. Week 10, definitely a tough matchup with Denver. That gives up the 2nd least amount of fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. But like I said, Geno coming off a big game, someone to mention on this list. And like I said, if you're in a pinch in 2 quarterback leagues or deeper, he's available right now in tons of leagues at 84%. Is Geno Smith. Next quarterback, Bryce Young of the Carolina Panthers. I know Bryce Young, he didn't have a good game in a tough matchup with the Green Bay Packers, but this week is a streaming option. It's a good matchup versus the New Orleans Saints, where we know they can't stop anyone. 1-8 on the season, give up the 15th most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. And Bryce Young, he's had a couple good games before. Obviously, the Week 9 game at the Green Bay Packers. Week 6 versus the Cowboys, 199 pass yards, 3 touchdowns, an interception, 5 rush yards. Week 7 at the Jets, 138 pass yards, touchdown, 10 rush yards. Week 8, he missed that game. And then week 9 at Green Bay, 102 pass yards, an interception, 9 rush yards. So like I said, he didn't look good in week 9. I don't think he's 100%. We got hurt in the back end of the week 7 game at the Jets was Bryce Young. But hey, a win is a win, the Green Bay Packers. And then week 10, like I said, this is a good streaming option for fantasy owners to go with Bryce Young, where New Orleans can't stop anyone, and he's available right now in 87% of fantasy leagues. And the final quarterback I looked at off the wire is Marcus Mariota of the Washington Commanders. So Mariota, there's a possibility he might start pretty much the rest of the season after we saw a devastating elbow injury. Luckily, his non-throwing arm for Jaden Daniels, where that elbow, it just snapped as he went to the ground and went back. So Mariota this season, he started 3 games for this Washington Commander team. In week 10 versus Detroit, they give up the 10th most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. We know he's going to have to go out there and try to make plays if they want to beat this offense and put points on the board. Is Marcus Mariota in the Commanders. Week 3 versus the Raiders, in a start, 207 pass yards, carries, 40 yards, a touchdown on the ground, and passing and a fumble loss. Week 4 at Atlanta, 156 pass yards, 2 passing touchdowns, an interception, 20 rush yards, a 2-point conversion. Week 8 at Kansas City, they were in that game in the first half, and then the second half on that Monday night, Kansas City blew the doors off, 213 pass yards, a touchdown, 2 INTs, 28 rush yards. He could get you anywhere from 4 to 5 points on the ground is Marcus Mariota. He's out there right now 96% of fantasy leagues. Week 10 here, like I said, Detroit does give up the 10th most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. We saw J.J. McCarthy go in there, have a good ball game. And Mariota, with his rushing upside, I think he could be a back-end quarterback in that 15 to 20 range in the rankings this week. So like I said, Daniels, I don't expect him back anytime soon, even though he's the non-throwing arm. That elbow just snapping and dislocating. And Marcus Mariota, he's been a capable backup quarterback and also a capable guy to help fantasy owners in a pinch. That's a few quarterbacks I looked at off the wire for week 10 of the fantasy football season.